What is up, DTube? What is up, Steam blockchain? So today I want to talk a little bit about the greatest on-ramp in history. So I was using the internet a little bit today, and I kind of got excited again about considering the on-ramp, and that is what excited me first about Steam in last year, January 2018, the on-ramp. So what is the on-ramp? Well, it was that when you use Steam for the first time and you actually saw what it was, you actually saw the capability, you saw, oh my god, this is amazing. It's gonna take over everything. And it will. Because it's just better. It's just better. It just offers more value. It doesn't have to be more complex than that. So, in many ways, people try to find, let's say, some massive reason, or trying to make it into, okay, how do we advertise, let's say, Steam to the public? But in many ways, it's not really, I think, in the long term something that's gonna have to get advertised, because eventually it's gonna become so obvious that it's great tech, it's amazing technology, and eventually then people are eventually gonna discover that, and we are gonna have a phase of the greatest on-ramp in history. And what that means is basically when it's so easy for a user to just switch and to just make value. Maybe they don't even know they are using, let's say, Steam blockchain, or maybe there is some other blockchain that they're using. They probably not gonna know what happens in the background. They probably don't even have to know what happens in the background. But basically, when it's easy to onboard, it's gonna have the same effect as late 2017, when there was this FOMO run, and everyone was trying to get to exchanges to buy some Bitcoin. That is a FOMO run that you're gonna see in adoption eventually of better technology that just gives digital ownership, digital stake in some kind of network. So you're going to see the same sort of on-ramp run as you saw late 2017, when people tried to get onto centralized exchanges. And many of those exchanges they had, for a moment, it was like, well, maybe you have to wait 6 months before you can buy some crypto. So my point is, in many ways, that, and this is so cringy to say in many ways, like, oh, price doesn't matter, but it's really not gonna matter when it's easy to onboard millions of people in an easy on-ramp. And there's a lot of factors into play here. For example, first you have society, that there's a lot of stuff going on. People are sort of busy, people are derping around, people are looking at entertainment, sports, whatever. And then you have that education takes a very, very long time, especially when it's new technology. And then you also have that people may not sit on the best software, maybe some older Android version, maybe some old iOS version. Maybe they don't have sort of the best smartphone. So really, in many ways, what we're waiting for is, first you need the on-ramp of people getting all the best education. So for example, Wikipedia has sort of tried to help with that. Google has tried to help with that for a couple of decades now. And then you have the next on-ramp, which was, okay, how do we get the software? How do we fix the hardware, right? So we're still in the previous sort of on-ramps. Like we're still in the phase of the hardware on-ramp to onboard more people, right? But then the greatest on-ramp is basically going to come. And that is going to be the on-ramp to when people are not just consuming digital content, but when they actually become digital owners, when they have stake in a network. And I mean, that's truly going to be the biggest on-ramp, because that is something that actually can make a person's life or millions of people's life better, because then the internet sort of changes for many people, where previously it was just about entertainment. It was not really, it was only a few people that could sort of make it as, let's say, a job. But then it gets to this phase where it's kind of so mature that everyone can sort of be a digital owner of something that they can exchange for food, for rent, for fiat, for whatever, right? And then we may even see a change in how people look at the term money. Maybe they start to look at it as how many shares, what kind of a digital owner I am in, let's say, a network. Because, I mean, that's what we see, for example, with Bitcoin. The reason why people get so confused is because they look at fiat and Bitcoin and they don't really understand that they own a stake in the network. Where with fiat, you don't really own a stake in a network, right? Or the old services that you're using, maybe Netflix, Facebook, you don't really own a stake in the network. You don't own any shares or something like that. Like, sure, you can get some fiat, like some monopoly printed money given to you, right? But it's not that you own, like, you're still at the mercy of the algos, and if they're gonna like you or if they're gonna dislike you or whatever. But the greatest on-ramp becomes when people truly become digital owners and can decide about their own data. Like, I think, as we see with Lumios right now, like, the future in many ways can be, maybe, that people actually, let's say, own their data and sort of decide, oh, do you want to sell this sort of data to this person, right? And that's very good, because I think that people like using the internet, but it's just shady when it's not transparent, that, oh, they're sort of selling your stuff and they're sort of listening to your voice in your smartphone and then sort of feed you ads. It's kind of weird. Like, it's not really super transparent. It's kind of like a strange relationship between different sources. So it gets very, very interesting when you get true on-ramp to really interesting peer-to-peer systems. Peer-to-peer has been here quite a long time, or in some ways you may say it hasn't, because in some ways, like, people say, well, peer-to-peer has been here since, like, I don't know really how long, but if we look at, for example, the torrent stuff, maybe a couple of decades. But then you look at, okay, is 20 years really that much time in human history? It's not really, right? It's just a small blip on the radar. So on-ramps takes quite some time. And people, when you only look at something for a few years, you sort of miss a lot of stuff. You miss the exponential curve, that something can look boring for 17 years, and then the last 3 years, that's when all happens. That's the sort of that is what caught a lot of people by surprise, because they can't really anticipate that change that happens in the end of something, let's say. So you see all the millions of users, or I guess I should say all the billions of users, it gets quite obvious that eventually they will move to the best technology that exists, like the blockchain stuff and the be a digital owner stuff. It just makes sense. And the basic model of the old systems is basically, well, you use these systems for free and then we sort of sell you ads, right? And the new systems are just, well, we're just going to make you a digital owner in some kind of network, and we're just gonna pay you for everything you do because it doesn't really cost us anything, because the tokens were sort of created from nothing. And yeah, so it's just it's not really any reason why a person eventually wouldn't on ramp, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see this on ramp happen, because I mean, we already see right now a lot of influencers or a lot of creators. One of the big reasons why they're not using blockchain stuff right now is because they're already making so good fiat. Because it's like we're printing fiat from nothing, right? So we have this limitless supply of fiat already, which all the content creators, they have, like, they're doing well. Like, they're doing very, very well with their value, right? So they don't really have a massive incentive to switch right now, which in many ways I find interesting. I don't mind waiting 5 to 10 years to see technology become better and better and better and better and better and better and better, because then you can solve all the bugs, all the problems, and then you can do the most epic on-ramp ever. And that is an on-ramp that's it's gonna really get a lot of people by surprise, because it's gonna be so exponential that you won't even be able to have like a mind view of how that is going to play out. So we see with a lot of projects, when they have a lower and lower price, it's kind of interesting with this industry. I'm not a financial advisor, but it's like Bitcoin has the good brand, right? So it's like if a person, let's say, owns BTC and they see the alts always sort of going down in a way, it makes so they really win both ways. Like if something goes up, maybe they can buy more alts. If it goes, if something goes down, then it usually is the alts, and usually not so much the BTC. Can change in the future, but it's like there are very interesting game theories here where a person in theory can own some Bitcoin, and then when the alts go down, they can basically get more. They can get more even in bad times, because as we've seen lately, Bitcoin sort of is getting up there in dominance, and it sort of has this scarcity digital store of value brand. So it's like you can win both on ups and downs. And I mean, the irony of projects is they're probably doing more work when they don't have any value, because they're working with the little that they have. So the irony of low prices of many projects is that they actually go to work, or maybe they don't have a work because they don't have any value that's flowing in, right? So it's really interesting that if you have like a 5 year bear sort of slow time, the irony of that is it probably is good. It probably eventually is going to create a dessert, like some nice candy at the end, that's going to be better than if everything would just have gone up super fast, right? So that's something that's quite interesting to consider. For example, people can sort of look at fix bugs, loopholes, all the drama stuff. They can sort of reorganize the system to a better model that can handle more nuanced complexity. So this is how out of order or out of chaos comes order, and you have that sort of movement that always goes on. It's very interesting. It's very interesting how intelligent systems use or look at the world and sort of reorganize themselves when there's too much chaos going on, and that the chaos actually benefits a lot of systems. That is kind of interesting. So when is this on-ramp going to happen? I mean, I already see it happening more and more and more, even though it's at very small levels at the same time. But I notice it with better programming. If I just look at my own life, I can see that what I'm doing right now and what I did 2018, I can see that the technology in many ways is like, or it's twice as easy to do something now than what I did last year. And next year is probably going to be again like a doubling effect, where I mean, you also of course educate yourself to, like, you see what you do, like your habits in on a day-to-day basis, and you sort of see how you can make it more efficient, which is kind of cool also. But I think that the on-ramp is probably going to be between 2022 and 2025. That really seems that is going to be a time period where we're going to see a lot of on-ramp to new things. And we're probably going to see a lot of stuff that hasn't even been invented yet, which is of course also going to be kind of cool. But yeah, it is going to be the best. It's going to be the greatest on-ramp in history, because never before did you have so great technology infrastructure that you actually could empower everyone with sort of real value. Yeah, I mean, it's quite exciting. It's going to create this, I think it's going to create this effect where, like, I don't think this generation is going to buy that much cars or sort of real estate and stuff like that. They sort of going to be the, I think they're going to be the mobility generation. That basically means that they can move around in the world and have access to goods and services. So maybe they want to have access to some robot taxi, access to the greatest food places. Maybe they do some videos there, access to the best technology, but just the access of being able to transport yourself in the world. It's yeah, you could say that previous generations have that too. I mean, they do, right? They have cars, they move around, but it's more that they just go to the same place all the time. There is not really that much room for exploration, because it's more fixed. Okay, you have a job and it's a physical place, and you go from A to B, and you sort of repeat that process. There's very little new going on, right? So maybe the new generation is going to be way more mobility to just explore stuff more, and that they can explore it in so many ways. They can explore the physical, they can explore the digital, and even though, for example, older generations, they can explore the digital, but they're not really doing it. I mean, in many ways, how they are doing it is they are exploring a screen like a TV, but the content of it is still sort of the same thing. It's not that much randomness. It's not so much novelty, right? It sort of follows more of a script. Well, I think that the new generation, the so-called mobility generation, I think that they want to sort of have more stuff to sort of engage them more niche content, just more randomness, or just more exploration in terms of mobility. And I think that's going to be quite interesting to see. So it's quite interesting because I think that people, especially older generation, I think they see that, well, the internet is just some small little thing. And so it's sort of going to be the same thing. But no, it's like the internet infrastructure is sort of still being built. It's sort of still, it's not really the internet. We're probably going to get some real internet around 2050. That's probably when people are going to look at, back then, 2020, they didn't really have the internet. video was seen as something that was like edgy and stuff like that, and people couldn't really move around that much. I mean, they didn't really have the mobility. They didn't really have these tools where you can really explore the landscape. So, for example, if a person, for example, travels right now to places. Well, the problem is that most people in a place you go to, they sort of like a plant. They can't do anything at their own time many times because they sort of need to be at places at fixed times. It's not really super much open-minded for exploration. So it's something that's interesting to talk about. And I get especially so excited for big, like large content creators, because they will be able to onboard, like they have like many of them have like millions of fans, right? And imagine being able to make all these millions of fans micro owners of something that they earn. So you can have this loop of value where the value doesn't get fixed in one place. So with the fiat systems, one big issue is you just have value sitting there, and many times it's not making more value. Or if you want to make it value, you have to sort of gamble with the value. There's no systems to make like great returns sort of on auto. And with tokenized solutions, you have this option of, okay, we can build a robot that can sort of allocate value back to people that sort of consume something. And maybe people realize, well, the cost of living can in theory go down a lot. So then I can just flip back my value to the viewers. That might sound super strange, but you can really do many new, unique, interesting models with technology. Like something that people haven't really thought about before, right? So, yeah. That is basically what I want to talk about today. Have an awesome day, DTube, Steam Blockchain.